Hello everyone, taking the multi-platform writing class with my good friend Sarah. My name is George Thomas and I've had the privilege to work at CBN News for over 20 years. And in case you're wondering, wow, how old is this kid? I started when I was 13, so just in case you were wondering I'm really old, I'm not. I've had the privilege to travel to over 100 countries working as a senior reporter, senior correspondent for CBN News, and it's a thrill. It really is. So as I take you over the next 7-8 minutes of this class to give you an idea of what I think are good storytelling habits or techniques, you have to understand my perspective. I get on a plane and I travel thousands of miles to the four corners of the world. And one of the things that I aim to do as a reporter is that I want to give my viewers who are watching my stories either on a phone or on a television screen, the experience of traveling to that country. It's so important. So what are some of the things that I look for? I look for what's called natural sound, the ambient noise within the scene that I'm filming. I look at pictures. Are they beautiful? I really make sure that whether I'm shooting this or somebody else is shooting, that they give me a perspective of the world that you normally don't see. In fact, I like to tell photographers, those who are perhaps considering being a camera person or a photojournalist in this class, but even as you're putting stories together, either for the social media platform, the digital platform, or even for television, my rule of thumb to photographers is you have to give me a view of the world that you normally don't. Like, for example, I'm standing in this room and I can see a three-dimensional view of this editing bay here at CBN News. I tell the camera person, look at this room from a different perspective, so that at the end of watching a story by George Thomas, you have a sense that you not only have appreciated the place you've gone to, but you've seen that place from a different perspective. So pictures are so important. And then music. I love music. One of the things that I love to do is when I get ready to write a story, this may sound a little crazy, but music inspires me. And so what I do is I will sit sometimes for 2-3 hours at my editing bay, at my desk or at home, late at night when everybody's gone to bed, and I'll just put headphones on and I'll begin to listen to music. Sometimes it's music that is indicative of that particular country, whether it's Vietnam, Cambodia, Zimbabwe, Guinea-Bissau, Cote d'Ivoire, it doesn't matter. I'll pick the music that is popular or is cultural to that country, and then I'll begin to sort of get inspiration. And in some cases, music helps me to set the scene of a story. And so you will find, if you Google my name, you'll see that a lot of the stories that I produce has an element of music in it. So music is a third element. I talked about natural sound, I talked about pictures, and the third element is music. And then obviously you have the basics, writing, good writing, short sentences, and you'll see in this piece that I've chosen for you guys to view, it's short sentences, one idea sentences. Anytime you have a comma on your script, it means it's too long. Generally, not all the time. So always stick to shorter sentences, one idea sentences, and obviously it has to be in the active, not the passive. And all of those things I'm sure you've seen or read and have been taught by Sarah over the last 6 weeks. But the story I'm going to profile in my section here is a story that I shot in the nation of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, but the nation of Georgia. And it's a country that's tucked between Azerbaijan, Turkey, Russia, and so I went to this place, and it's an absolutely beautiful, and one of the things I realized very quickly the moment I landed in this country is just how beautiful it was. And so in telling the story, I wanted to make sure that I capture that scene. One of the things about telling the story and my technique of taking the person there is allowing a story to breathe. Just the fact that I had a moment of pause, a moment of silence. You see, your voice and the way you tell a story, whether you rush and you say it very quickly with drama, or you sit back and you think, wow. That's part of telling the story, right? So you're allowing a story to breathe. When you shoot your elements, it's not voiceover, soundbite, another voiceover, another soundbite. I love to to just breathe through my stories, because it's also one of those techniques of allowing your viewer, you're taking your viewer to that particular place. You know, I tell folks who want to get into journalism and to tell a story, whether from the written perspective or the television perspective, think of it as you have a blank canvas, and in front of you is a can of paintbrushes, and right next to you is your palette of multiple colors. Your decision to take one brush over the other, maybe it's a thick one, perhaps it's a thin one, maybe it has sharp bristles, and how you choose the color, and then you turn around like a master painter and you begin to paint. How hard you press on the canvas, how lightly you press. One of the things I like to do when I go to an art show is that I will look at a painting from different angles. I'll stand way back, then I'll get really close, like that, right? Or sometimes I'll look on this side, or I'll go on this other side, and I'll look at the painting from multiple angles, because the painter he or she has taken the time to give you the details of the picture he or she is painting. It's the same thing with storytelling. You have different techniques to be able to tell a story. Use all of those techniques in order to grip your audience on a particular subject or a place. So you'll see in the story natural sound, music, straightforward, good writing, good images, good ambient noise. And then the other thing I want to say, if you want to get into journalism and if you want to get specifically into television news, one of the elements of bringing the story to the viewer is a stand-up. It's called a reporter stand-up, right? You're standing in front. So here's the example, right? So behind me is fire, is a house that's burning. Typical reporter on your local news, and in fact sometimes in network news. Hello, this is George Thomas. Behind me, way over there, is a fire. And there is a 5-alarm fire. There's 10 fire trucks and people. I would never do that, right? For me, I want to get really as close as possible without getting burnt, right? I'll get close as possible. So for example, if I was doing a story about a 5-alarm fire, you know what I would be doing as a stand-up? I would be next to the guy, the fire chief or a fireman, who has his hose on and water is just gushing out of the pipe, and I'm getting a little wet. Guess what? My cameraman's getting wet. The lens is getting wet from all the water. That's the way you get into the story. And so you'll see two examples here in a second of two different stand-ups of how I'm trying to bring my viewer into the story, so that at the end of this 6-minute experience of being in Georgia, my hope is that you will say, man, Georgia's a beautiful country. Gosh, George, thank you for taking me to Georgia. Did you get that? Thank you for taking me to Georgia. At the end of the day, when you finish watching a story, you want to get the sense like, wow, this guy had the privilege to go all the way to Georgia, which is about 7,250 miles from the shores of Virginia. Or maybe it's 7,200. Anyway, whatever it is. This feeling that you have gone there and experienced it. That's what I hope to do. There's different techniques. Remember, you have a can with different brushes, different palettes of colors and so forth. It's just a technique. It's a technique that I enjoy and that I hope over 20 years people have enjoyed watching my stories. So allow me to demonstrate a little bit of the things that I've talked about, and you'll see this in the actual piece. But the opening piece, okay, the opening 30 seconds, guess what? Is just the beauty of Georgia. Now keep in mind, this is cinematic kind of music. It was famed novelist John Steinbeck who, while traveling through... So I'm about 25 seconds into the piece, right? You've not heard me, and I don't know if you could notice, and perhaps you can put your headphones on when you watch the piece. You will hear the sound of the wind blowing, over the mountains of Georgia. You'll hear the rustle of leaves. Again, that's the idea. You want to give them a sense like you're there, allowing your piece to breathe. And picking the best pictures. You're using all kinds of technology. In this case, we used a drone to give you the epicness of the scenes of Georgia, okay?
Through the Soviet Union in 1947, referred to this land as a kind of second heaven. And it's easy to see why. Once part of the communist empire and often called the Riviera of the Soviet Union.
Okay, just another example. Still pictures. I love to take still pictures. And I try to incorporate it in my storytelling ability. Still pictures communicate a different element. It can be a dramatic shot of a woman, a close-up of a woman with all of her, maybe she's in her 70s, all of her wrinkles and the sunburn and so forth. And you can push into the picture. There's something about a still image. So think about in that process, and remember I told you about that little can with different paintbrushes. Think of still pictures as another brush, as another way of telling that story.
The Republic of Georgia nestles between the Caucasus Mountains and the Black Sea.
So like right there, you could hear time lapse of the mist rolling into the shot, and you can hear. That's the idea of allowing your piece to breathe.
Turkey and Armenia flank its southern border. Azerbaijan is to the east. Russia to the north.
Now, if you notice in the script, in describing, let me just read the line to you for a second. Again, there are just a few words here. Turkey and Armenia flank its southern border. Very quick sentence. Azerbaijan is to the east. Full stop. Russia to the north. It's a one idea. I'm painting a picture, right? Russia to the north. I'm not using commas, semicolons. It's just a one idea sentence.
Anvazadze is a Georgian businessman.
I come from a very ancient, perhaps one of the most ancient cultures in the world.
An ancient place where people speak a language that's over 2,000 years old. Ethnographer Luasab Togonitse says his is a country that has also witnessed its fair share of turmoil.
Now you notice there in the soundbite, now these are technical things. When you lead into a soundbite, make sure that the sentence before your soundbite does not reflect or is not repetitive to what the person is saying. Make sure that there is no, you're leading, it's almost like a tease. It's like a window. You're going to set up the person who's going to say the soundbite and then let that person say it. Now you notice, like, for example, the gentleman just said his line was, I come from a very ancient, perhaps one of the most ancient cultures in the world. I decided my next line was to play off of the words ancient. And I said, an ancient place. It's so ancient, right? Remember? He said, I come from a very ancient place. I say it's so ancient that the people there speak a language that's over 2,000 years old. Again, I'm painting the picture that the place we're going to is very old. So old that the language they speak itself is over 2,000 years old. And so that's the idea when you lead into these sound bites. Remember, don't steal the thunder of the person who you're going to choose, the soundbite that you're going to choose. Don't steal it. That in the sense that you repeat what that person says. That just is boring. Don't do that. Okay, please don't do that. Okay, don't do that. And then when the person finishes a sentence, you can take a piece of nugget from that sentence and continue the story.
Georgians go through a lot because of the geographical location. Many armies, invaders would pass this way.
History here is measured in millennia, not centuries.
And throughout the ages, your country. History here is measured in millennia, not centuries. Simple idea. Again, trying to convey that this is a very, very old place. In the space of 1 minute and 31 seconds, I have used 4 different scores of music. Again, the idea is the opening scene, dramatic, cinematic, wide expanse. Think of National Geographic. right? So it's very, lots of different instruments. And in this one, right here, if I can go back here for a second, just listen to the music for a second.
Georgians go through a lot. Because of the geographical location, many armies, invaders would pass this way.
History here is measured in millennia, not centuries.
Again, it has, perhaps I'm not quite sure the instrument, but it's almost like a horn, you know, to kind of take you, wow, this is historical kind of music. It's painting the picture. I could not have chosen bum 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 bum. You know, that would not be the right score. You know, so you have to think of those things when you're trying to make those transitions. And again, it's storytelling. You're trying to bring the viewer into the story. You're trying to keep them glued to the story, and these elements are going to enhance and keep your viewer, hopefully, through the entire story.
And throughout the ages, your country has been the playground for numerous empires.
The Ottomans, the Persians, the Greeks, the Byzantine Empire, the Romans, the Mongols, the Russians.
In the capital city of Tbilisi, the ancient and modern mix seamlessly.
Okay, writing to video. That's another thing you're going to probably hear in your class, writing to video. I just used the phrase, the ancient, right? And what did I use? I used a picture
In the
that
capital city of Tbilisi, the ancient.
you can just see it looks pretty ancient. That doesn't look like a modern size skyscraper in downtown New York, right? Or London or Tokyo or Melbourne, right? It looks pretty ancient, right? So in Tbilisi, the ancient
And modern mix
that looks very modern, right? It's such a contrast, right?
modern mix seamlessly to create a beautiful portrait of Georgia's rich culture and traditions.
One of the best ways to take in the sights and sounds. Okay, so talked about stand-ups, so it's perfect, right? Stand-ups is I could have easily been on the banks of the river here and just talked about something, you know, but instead I decided to take a cable cart, right, and shoot the stand-up in the cable cart and talk about how one of the ways to take in the sights and sounds that you just saw and enjoyed, hopefully, in the last 2 minutes, this is one way to take in the sights and sounds of Tbilisi is to take one of these trolleys up the mountain. And so there you see the trolley of me taking the trolley up the mountain.
In filming,
And if you notice there was at least about 20 seconds of no talking. Right? It was a switch. Again, music, this is my sixth score, maybe, sixth set of music in the piece. I'm only about 2.5 minutes into the piece. Again, it's setting up the scene of the place.
of Tbilisi and stunning countryside landscapes. Georgian cameraman Georgi Shamazana said it best. Every time I travel in different regions of my country, I feel like I'm traveling through thousands of years of history.
And I'm going to end on this here.
Georgians are legendary for their hospitality. They believe guests come from God and as such are treated with honor. Their food is simply out of this world.
For example, you have this amazing dish. It's called khinkali, and the all-famous hachapuri. So it took me a couple of takes to say khinkali and hachapuri. The idea is there, again, I'm trying to bring my viewer into there. I'm sitting at a table, I'm moving the food. I just ate. I mean, one of the things I would have done was put khinkali in my mouth and chew it and do it. I've done that before in previous stand-ups. The point is, as I wrap up here, it's you want to take your viewers on a journey, right? And you have the privilege to go. You can combine beautiful pictures, sound, music, good writing, good storytelling in being able to tell a story and make people care about it. And remember, try to give people a view of the world that perhaps they're not used to. I like to use this phrase that when you put a story together, excuse my language here, but you know, is it butt gripping? Yeah, I said it. Yeah, is it butt gripping? Does it grip you, and does it make you want to do something? I've had many people who have watched my piece on Georgia says, man, I never knew there was a place called Georgia. Secondly, I didn't even know it was so beautiful. Thirdly, I want to go. That to me is, I've done my job. I've done my job in trying to take you there. And I hope that as you've taken this class in multi-platform writing, that as you watch this piece and gives you inspiration to be a better writer, use shorter sentences, one-idea sentences, be creative in the way you tell the story. And at the end, you, if I can use a spiritual term here, you want to hopefully at the end of the day inspire people to do something, to act, to pray, to go, to be involved in social justice or whatever it is, so that your stories count and that you feel like you're making a difference. I just wish you guys all the best as you've got 2 more weeks in this 8-week class, and many of you at Regent for a particular reason and a divine purpose, I think, and that I just hope that in the process you will discover the special calling that is on your life.